Hello, my guy and family. Thank you so much for watching again one of my videos. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, this video has some really good information for you and has a important message, because I personally wasn't planning of doing this kind of video yet, talking about this kind of topics. But it so happened that I realized or learned recently one thing that made me take notes because of the realization that I had, and I had to share it with a video for sure. So this is much of the information in this video is based on a project done in the 80s called Looking Glass, where they started using technology that allowed them to see specific outcomes based on decisions that they made. And one of the cool things that came out of that is that they couldn't see past 2012, and everything started to get a little fuzzy around that time, but they saw two different outcomes. And I'm just going to talk about the first outcome, because this video is not to talk about Project Looking Glass or anything like that. I'll probably make another video about it, but for now, the important thing is that they didn't know what was going to happen after 2012. And because of information that started coming out, I believe since 2016 was the first indication, then 2017, and so on and so forth, we got to the point where we now know where we're at and in which timeline. And fortunately for us, and because it's very obvious at this point, we are in that timeline where there is an awakening process, a massive awakening process that is just happening, and it's obvious. Like I said, right now, that's why you're watching this video. This is why I am doing this kind of content, whereas a year ago I was a very narrow-minded, scientific oriented person, and I didn't believe in any of this. So this is actually happening. We know for sure now, at least we have evidence, even though the anecdotal evidence that's happening is there to be seen and heard anywhere, and you can see it just in every case. I mean, obviously not in conventional news outlets or just social media in general. Obviously everything's manipulated, but you can see it with the people. You can see it on the internet if you follow closely. Just amateur people that are doing, you know, these kind of content, pretty much like me, the things that they're talking about, so on and so forth. But to not get lost in just everything else, it's just happening. This timeline where we're at is very important because of several things that I'll talk about, and those are the notes that I have for the video. And it's very important because now we know that we are on a timeline that allows us to start building our future. And now it's going to make sense once I start talking about it, but just put that as the foundation of the message right now. We know that we are in a timeline where we can start building our future the way we want it, and beyond anything else that we had imagined in the past. Now we have a lot of work to get done, obviously, and this is part of, you know, some of the points that I'm talking about here are related to that. But the important thing is to know that we are at that point. Now, we know this because after crossing 2012, that threshold, there is sufficient evidence now, like I said, to show that we are in a timeline where there is a massive awakening. Like I said, that's my first note that I took from this learning, and it has to do with the timeline that was predicted at that time, and that we now know you are definitely in because of all the things that are happening globally, and even at a solar system level, things that we didn't expect were going to happen. A lot of this stuff is coming out as scientific evidence finally, and it's really good news. So one of the things that characterize this timeline is that there is a waking up is inevitable. Like there was no way around it. So my second note was that waking up is inevitable. Whether you do it now or in the future, it will happen, and it will happen sooner than later. Now, my third note, and I want to read it pretty fast, is that in this future, all our decisions should be based in positive energies because the negatives are not so available. Now, what does this mean? It means that we got to the point where waking up is inevitable. Whether you believe in the occult science, the esoteric stuff, the ufology, the hidden history, our political systems, etc., the system in general, if you don't believe in any of that, it will start being revealed to you. This is part of the big disclosure that is happening also this year. It started happening last year if you followed anything, which is really hard to follow because the internet is so crowded with misinformation or disinformation in general, and other things that just make the whole internet and information flow pretty trashy. So it's good to know that these things are now coming out to the public. They're being published as we speak right now. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of stuff that's coming out, just like 0 point energy and anti-gravity stuff. That's, like I said, it's now patented, and I think it's open source as of 2019 September of last year. So a lot of things are happening that are showing that this is happening. So I don't think I need to convince you on that. If not, you probably wouldn't be watching this video. But it's good to know, because people are always, desperate to know if it's true, if it's not, if it's all in our mind, if it's just, an idea. Maybe we're just, we have wishful thinking for some reason, but it's true, and the evidence is starting to come out. So that waking up is inevitable. And whether you believe it or not, it will happen. It'll show in your face. And this is part of the next point that I want to talk about, which is basing our decisions on positive energies. Now, why is that? Because after 2012, we had a shift in the energetic field of the solar system and the planet itself, which is a good thing. These energies are now positive and are less negative, and so we have. We can put it as building blocks. We have more building blocks that are positive, that are benevolent, that are making our decision making much more fluent and harmonious. So this is a really important point. And before I get to the next part of my notes, I think it's important to note that the hardest process is what in the Essenes, the philosophy of the Essenes, was called the dark night of the soul. One of the 7 mirrors of the Essenes. And what that means, the dark night of the soul, is that harsh part we have to go through our awakening, realizing that our ego, that our social constructs, that our titles, our ideas of who we are, have to be challenged because they are not serving us anymore. This is a lot of the friction that a lot of people are feeling now with this consciousness expansion, is that they feel that a lot of the things that were part of their life are no longer serving them, are no longer valid, and somehow they start feeling that it's also detracting from their own positive experience. And this is a necessary step. This is part of, like I said before, if you don't believe in let's call it, all the occult history and science behind reality, then if you don't believe, then you need to go through this massive cleansing of our ego, of our personality, of everything else that it's probably what's trending a lot right now. And there's a reason for it. It's not one of those trendy things that people are taking advantage. I'm pretty sure there's always people taking advantage of, people going through these shifts in consciousness, and but that's too bad for them, because they're accumulating more karma than they probably have time to get rid of. So, but it's a fact, it's happening. And a lot of this energetic cleansing that we need to have from all this negative implants that we had put in our life, just in our mind, our body, mind, spirit complex, let's put it that way, it has been causing this friction now that we're going through this field of energy that is just, it's accelerating even more. It's a good thing because it's cleansing us from it, but it can be perceived also as a troublesome experience or a very uncomfortable situation where we have to deal with things from our past, our traumas, things that are not serving us well right now. People are going through breakups and just leaving their families or leaving their social circles, quitting their jobs. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening that usually we would think is, something negative that happened to somebody. But what's actually happening, I mean, it was always like that in the past, but now more than ever is needed, because this is revealing the next point that I have, which says this means that whatever your dream or passion is, you have to start living it, and it will happen. But the key is to do it for the good of humanity, because otherwise it just won't happen. This means that we need to go through this cleansing. We need to accept ourselves for who we are, and we need to shed all these layers of things that we thought we are, that we thought made us who we are. That identity, that false identity of self, we got to get rid of that. And that can be a whole topic in and of itself, but we need to get rid of that so we can start seeing our future and the things that we like. And with this, I'm saying, if you're passionate about playing a sport, if you're passionate about building, building stuff, because people are just phenomenal builders and they just can't make a living out of that or something else, all these things are going to start happening in your life. The reason is because we already know what the future is. We already know that the future is, no matter how you do it, we will arrive at a collective organism in Gaia, being all of us being in harmony and being using the technology that we have available for our own benefit and away from the system that has created us. That's at least one of the big steps, just in a physical form. The spiritual aspect is a lot more, way more, that I can cover today. But this is one of the physical parts that people need to realize, is that the future is holding the same outcome. We are all heading to the same outcome. What changes is the path that you take towards that outcome. So, I mean, logically, if you know you are arriving at the same location and you can choose your path, wouldn't you want to choose the least resistant path? It's like electricity, because we're all energy, right? So appropriate. So it's true. We have to pick the path of least resistance. That means you have to be yourself. You can't be someone else. You can't be faking, because we all fake. We go out to the grocery store and, we go to meetings at work and we go whatever, and we have to pretend to be something to a small degree. I'm not saying, be full on crazy, but I mean, if you're crazy, then why not, but going back to the topic is that you have to create this new identity of self. And for that, you need to get rid of all the things that don't serve you anymore. Only you know who you are. Only you know what really ignites your passion, things that you want to do, right? So that's a very important part of this whole process that we're going through, this timeline that we know already has an outcome, and that outcome is the same no matter which path you take. But if you're intelligent enough and aware enough, you want to take the path that is more harmonious with you. So I don't want to linger too much in this, because I have more to cover. Next, I have that this is why it's important to have a good concept of reality and what really benefits the world. That way, we can use these positive energies to build our future. What does this mean? That because we have a wrong, and this goes back to shedding, the things that are not part of ourself. You also knowing what the external world is and not the illusion that we believe is, then we can start making more conscious decisions and use these energies in an appropriate way. If not, then the next point that I want to rush through, because I don't want to make this video too long, is I say that those decisions based on fear, ego, manipulation, control, and other negative intentions, they won't lead you anywhere. just because that's not the setting that we're at right now in the current space time that we're traveling. So those energies are not available. The negative energies that made so many people thrive in the old system are not available anymore. So we have to be very conscious of all the decisions that we make that are not based on these negative energies. Like I said, fear-based stuff is very important to avoid. Anything that creates fear in your life is withholding you. It's actually holding you back from being who you are. Manipulating others is detrimental to your own future in any regard. I know consciously we don't do any of these things, but subconsciously is the problem, because we have been programmed for years and years and years to behave in a certain way and to avoid certain other things, and just this whole behavior. And this is where it gets very complex, because it's a very individual thing. But the key message is to just don't act based on fear. Don't do things that you can recognize it's not you. And I know this is hard, but I can't really help every individual case with one video, and it's just a generalization, I guess, of what we should be doing. So the other point that I have is that in the same way, making decisions based in the fake system and society we live in will be like building in quicksand, or even worse, with an illusion that will simply vanish. Well, this is simple. I mean, if we are building our future based on illusory stuff, things that don't exist, then obviously our future is going to be not what we expect, to say the least. I mean, just doing things that are not congruent with who you are, and thinking this has to do more with what we perceive as reality. Okay, this is one of my main topics, and the thing that I'm really passionate about, just the perception of reality. If you have an idea, your life is centered around the goal of building up in, say, the corporate ladder, which is the most illusory stuff we can actually believe in, then your future is going to be very, very unstable, right? So you have to start doing things that are more in line with who you are again, and not with the apparent illusion that we live in. Economy, religion, just political, education, just everything else that we know as the system. And I talk about a lot in my content, this matrix, this projected matrix of reality. We shouldn't be basing our life on that. We should be basing it on what we're passionate about, what our heart tells us. And I know this is something that sounds very, very philosophical, to base it on our hearts. But the truth is, now, thankfully, science has been catching up with the research, is that our heart has a magnetic field, and that magnetic field is causing our reality to change in the ways we want it, whether we know it consciously or not. And that's very, very important. To leave another message, and I think it's very important, because I like to leave you with it, not only a positive message, but also something to think about and chew on, is that the collective consciousness is like a grid of information that exists around the earth. We all interact with it every single moment of our life. Imagine it as the internet, the Wi-Fi. I like to call it the Wi-Fi of the planet. And we humans, we contribute to it greatly with our emotions and with our thinking, and just basically with our being. So with us going through this cleansing process, this energetic cleansing process that we're going through, we're also freeing ourselves from all the things that we are subconsciously uploading to the collective consciousness. And that's a very important thing, because imagine you uploading fear to the collective consciousness. Then you're also contributing other people to download from the collective consciousness this fear. So we're not contributing something good. When we free ourselves from all these traumas, this past experience that didn't serve us well, and they're not serving us well anymore, then we start being more harmonious. We start being more in line with who we are mentally and spiritually. So now we start uploading good information to the collective consciousness. We start contributing more to other people, and other people start awakening a lot more. So for me, I think the theme for the next decade is going to be this cleansing process. And it doesn't have to be a decade. And that's the thing. That's where my last message is. It doesn't have to be a decade. But we do have approximately a decade to get through this phase of just cleansing this old ideas. I like what some people now are calling it the old world order, I think it is, as opposed to the new world order. It's the old world order because it doesn't apply anymore. All those ideas, the paranoia that people started feeling about the new world order, not happening. So now we want to accelerate this process that's called ascension. And this is something that I'll talk about more in my videos. But this ascension process is basically all of us as a humanity. It's not an individual thing. Everybody as humanity has to be aware of where we're at in this time and space. So the best way to do it is to individually change who we are and get rid of all that nonsense that doesn't serve us anymore, and start contributing more to everybody around us and to the collective consciousness, like I said, to accelerate and speed up this process. It's beneficial for you, it's beneficial for me, and for everybody else in the planet, including obviously everybody around you that you care for. So this is the message that I have today. We know for sure now that we are in a timeline that is expressing all the good things that we have been dreaming about, the things that we imagined, and we always said like, yeah, right, that's never gonna happen. Well, guess what? We were contributing to the collective consciousness saying that it's not going to happen, but now we have a lot more energy to work with to make it real. And like I said, in most of my stuff, you don't want to change people. You want to change yourself. And with changing yourself, you change everybody else. So that's my message for today. Stay in tune, obviously, with all the content that I'm going to continue to create, because this is something that I do for passion, something that I love doing. And again, going back to just a little bit before I leave you, this is something that I can actually attest. I was so afraid of my own self that doing what I love, which is this communication through video, through podcasts, through writing, I was terrified of doing this before. I had to shed all those notions that I was not sufficient. I still am. I'm still struggling with every day I have something new that comes up, or every week something major, or every month something very life-changing happens, because I'm in this process with you, and I'm simply sharing my understandings, things that I'm learning. And I had to go through my dark night of the soul several times. I'm still going through, and it's a very rewarding process because, like I said, it's just stripping away those things that don't belong to you anymore. So this is my content for you. Hopefully it serves you well, and more content's going to come out. I want to thank you for watching it again, and please stay in tune. If you want to subscribe, then you can get notifications whenever I post videos, and I really appreciate that. Leave any comment, obviously, because I am very, very involved with my community, and I want to get involved even more. So more things are going to come up, and I thank you for being part of it. And with that, I'll leave you. Thank you.